With us now to talk about this historic visit and what it means is the Irish Consul General in Chicago, Kevin Byrne. Mr. Consul General, thank you for joining us this Friday morning. We appreciate it.
Brad, thank you so much for having me on.
Perfect. We have anyone on with an Irish accent or any of the Isles an accent, it really kind of ups the game and legitimacy of the stream, so we appreciate you bringing your accent with you. President Biden is the 8th U.S. president to visit the Republic, all since President John Kennedy, the first Irish Catholic to become president of the United States. He visited back in 1963. Of course, Mr. Kennedy with also very strong Irish and Chicago connections. Now Mr. Biden is there 60 years later, also feeling sentimental, the homeland of his ancestors. So my question to you is, why does Ireland hold such a special place for the president and presidents of the past? And what does this trip say about Ireland's relationship with the U.S.?
Well, Brad, on President Biden's first year in the White House, on St. Patrick's Day, he said, the fabric of modern America is woven through with the green of the Emerald Isle. And that's something that's so true. There are 32 million Americans today who proudly claim Irish heritage. Of course, the president is probably the best known of those at the moment. And for us, it's a real celebration of the strength of that Irish and U.S. relationship. It's a relationship, as you mentioned, that goes back many generations. I think the president is meeting some of his fourth and fifth cousins, but it's a relationship that has a strong history, but also a very important present. You mentioned the Good Friday Agreement, 25 years of a peace agreement that ended conflict within Northern Ireland. Very much an agreement brokered by the U.S. And an agreement that brought peace to the island. So a very important visit for the president to Ireland.
Yeah, and I remember vaguely, but the news of yesteryear, the tumult between Northern Ireland and Ireland. And Chicago, of course, takes a great deal of pride in its Irish heritage. It runs a lot deeper than dyeing the River Green on St. Patrick's Day. One of our own congressmen, Mike Quigley, is in Ireland with Mr. Biden right now. What other Irish connections does Chicago have that we should be keyed in on?
Yeah, there's a huge number of Irish connections. You mentioned the Green River, of course, but we have twin sister cities. So we have Galway, the beautiful city of Galway on the west coast of Ireland is twinned with the city here. The beautiful county of Cork is twinned with Cook County here. Not just, I suppose, those twinnings, but there's a huge and very strong economic and trade relationship. So many people know about U.S. investment in Ireland, but there's also very, very strong Irish investment here in the US. So Ireland is actually the 9th largest investor in the United States, which is impressive for a country half the size of Illinois with a population about the same as that of Cook County. It's about 10,000 jobs in Illinois created by Irish companies. So a very real and tangible connection. Also, folks want to get a taste of Ireland. We've got 2 wonderful Irish centres here in the city. On the north side, we have the Irish American Heritage Centre. I'd encourage people to go and visit them and all of their cultural events. And then, of course, on the south side of the city, we have Gaelic Park, which is another of our great Irish centres here in the city.
Let's talk internationally now. As we said earlier, these are tense times politically. I want to play a soundbite of Mr. Biden addressing the Irish government and get your take on it, if you can listen to this, and then I'll ask you a question.
I think we really do stand at an inflection point. I've used that phrase several times in talks I've had here. But the decisions we make now are going to determine what the next 3 or 4 decades are going to look like. They're going to lay down the path that we're going to follow. It's happened every 5, 6 generations throughout history. Things are changing. We have an opportunity to make things better or lay back and let events determine what we're going to do.
Okay, and a green tie there. He talked about this being an inflection point, almost a generational inflection point. For the layperson, what specifically does that mean? We know there's tumult with who's in the European Union, who's not. What are the inflection points here? What is the importance more than just a president going to see his homeland?
I think, yeah, you touched on that point of inflection point. So obviously we have at the moment an unprecedented period of stress on the liberal world order, on those democratic values and human rights that we in the West value so dearly. Obviously, of course, just on the European continent now, we have a really terrible war between Russia and Ukraine, a war of aggression that we didn't think we'd see after World War II. He talked about inflection points. And I think we can look back to the last inflection point, which I think was probably the end of World War II, which saw the foundation of the European Union. And President Biden, throughout his trip, has talked about the importance of the partnership between the US and the West, and Ireland obviously being part of that. I think the West is strong when the EU, when Europe and the US stand shoulder to shoulder. And throughout, particularly the war in Ukraine, the US, under US leadership, Europe has stood side by side with them, and Ireland has played our part. We have about 75,000 women and children from Ukraine who fled that terrible conflict that are sheltering now in Ireland, and following US leadership as we face up to this brutal aggression from Russia.
Yeah, so time to shore up strong allegiances and alliances. Before I let you go, I'm a fan of Irish whiskey, and that is whiskey with an E, W-I-H-S-K-E-Y. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, when you really want to Irish it up in Chicago, when you say, we're going Irish tonight, what is most Irish to you in Chicago? Where do you go? What do you hit up?
Yeah, look, there's a huge number of places you can go if you want to go somewhere Irish. Obviously, we've got the wonderful bar in the Irish American Heritage Centre, again down in Gaelic Park. Irish pubs here. You've got some of the best Irish pubs in the city. You've got Gage, Dearborn, the Kerryman, so many places that you can go. But look, I suppose just even walking around Chicago, there's a great sense of Irishness. I often like to say that the Irish helped build this city. Just look up to the skyline, probably built by Irish labourers or immigrants and Irish labourers. So I think anywhere you are in Chicago, you can really get a true sense of Ireland.
All right. Consul General Kevin Byrne, a new friend of the stream. We thank you for joining with us, and not the last time we will have you on here. Thank you for your good works and insight this morning. A lot more to know, and we wanted to know it, and we got that insight from you on this important presidential visit to Ireland. Thank you, Consul General.
Thank you so much, Brad.